But my understanding is that the next generation reactors are like extremely reliable, and something like absolutely catastrophic in like an insane way would have to go wrong for anything like that to happen again here in the US, as well as, people even harken back to Chernobyl, right? And the things that went wrong there, we're not going to get like into that case specifically, but again, had to do with like outdated systems, poor management, a whole host of like a whole number of things had to go wrong in order for that disaster to even happen as well. So, what do you
Yeah.
say to people that are concerned about safety?
Yeah, so there are basically like three like big high profile you know, uh whatever disasters that have occurred in like domestic civilian production of power. So Chernobyl, no one disputes that Chernobyl was a disaster. It killed a lot of people. It should have never happened. Like the Soviet scientists who didn't stop it. Like I've seen like it's in the Nuclear Now documentary, which everyone should go see, that Oliver Stone created. I'm pretty sure it's available for streaming. But some of the scientists are like, yeah, it's like the biggest regret of my life that we didn't like somehow intervene. Like nominally we could have had some influence, and that was just such a disaster, not only for the human loss or lives lost, but also that it became this barrier to the proliferation of nuclear power, with
Mhm.
all the kind of like consequences of not having that power, and being the costs of other sources of power that we are using instead. So anyway, no one disputes Chernobyl, but yeah, we're not going to have anything like that in the United States. 3 Mile Island was the domestic one. No one was injured at 3 Mile Island. The exposure to radiation was like less than the exposure to radiation that you get just being outside. Like we live in a world full of radiation. If you live in Colorado, you're at a higher elevation, you get exposed to more background radiation. People in Colorado do not have higher rates of cancer. There's like Kerala, India has like really high background radiation. They don't get higher rates of cancer. There's like lots of information about this. It's not that like it's always a question of the dose. How, like, what magnitude of radioactive damage are you taking over what um time scale? And because the body has mechanisms to repair at low doses, because we grew up in like humanity grew up, it evolved in a like radioactive environment, and
Mhm.
also in an environment where I don't know as much about this, but like oxygen destroys all kinds of things. Like
Right.
it harms our cells. So like in general, our body has to like respond to stresses and develop these mechanisms to deal with like small doses. So anyway, so no one got hurt there. So then Fukushima. So Fukushima, a couple points. So one, it's literally both an an earthquake and a tsunami at the same time. Like it was just already a natural disaster that was, basically exacerbated by the meltdown of the plant. There were a bunch of nuclear power plants in that area, and all of them safely, shut down, except for Fukushima Dakai, I think is how it's pronounced, which is the one that we just call Fukushima. And part of the issue there was their backup generator was not at a high enough elevation. So when the tsunami hit, um, the backup generator went down, and then the reactor was not able to safely power down like all the other ones.
Mhm.
So there's and then okay, so let's take that. Um, and then everyone's terrified because there's a meltdown. But the like as of now, there's like one civil case where people have sued, um, the Japanese, like Pepco, um, for the death of a worker, saying that it was like the exposure to radiation through the disaster led to his death, and there was like a settlement, and they received money. But just for one worker, they were successful in that, but other like there are no reported deaths due to radiation in Fukushima,
Mm,
because like you real again, it's about this like dose that you get access to. So in Chernobyl, so much of the problem was that people were they didn't have the systems to actually deal with it, so they were just sending people in like short, you know, work shifts to try to manage the waste, and that led to a lot of deaths. But so Fukushima, it was definitely a disaster. But we've like all of the existing operational plants, even the generation 1, generation 2 reactors have adapted their protocols. You know, your backup generator if you're near water or, you know, could experience some kind of torrential rain or whatever needs to be at a higher elevation. Every time there's some sort of disaster, the industry learns from that. They do take safety very seriously. Um, so that uh, I think that in general, like it's just so much safer than people think it is. The nuclear industry itself in the United States has like some of the best, like their workers are like less likely to get injured than accountants. You know, like they take safety super seriously. Um, like the stats on that are insane. There have been no deaths due to radiation from a domestic power plant inside the United States. Um, you know, there's just like the actual statistics here.
mm,
It just it is very safe. I understand the fears. I think there are ways to, you know, kind of mitigate those risks. As you said, the different designs are less risky, but also my kind of view on this is I just want reasonable regulation at the federal level, and then I want both like states and localities to decide what they want to do. Like the federal government shouldn't be making it impossible for a state that wants to build a bunch of nuclear plants to do so just because some people somewhere else are afraid. Um, these things are very localized as far as like even if there's a meltdown, like it's very localized. Even with the generation 2 reactor. So I don't think this should be a thing where from the top down we just like default stop it. And I think if we hadn't stopped it and just allowed the industry to continue to innovate and work and had reasonable regulations, no one would be worried about it at all. We'd
yeah.
have much cheaper power. We'd have much safer plants. We'd have iterated way more just because if you have a lot of money working on things, you got a lot of smart people to solve problems.